Wait, what? Uh-oh. For real? I don't know if I'm supposed to be live. And I don't know how to watch
Put
this.
you in the darkness.
And
I've seen some stuff even within the last 24 hours that it's not only very disturbing, it's kind of like when, let's say, for instance, there's your mother, right? Your great-great-grandmother as a soul, and she's been trying to get your attention to handle something that you, as being Ram, which is Sunday, the soul, the synthesis, etc., that you need to handle, that you have to bring light to the darkness. You have to basically deal with this karma, okay? And what happens, though, is that you spend the first part of your life completely oblivious to this is what has been going on. Some have definitely had some contacts when they were younger, and some have maintained that connection since the beginning, and they just have found themselves led right into this path. But most have been pretty much cut off from the spiritual aspects of what their life exists with, as far as dealing with ancestors and souls and all that. And they've been turned on to this world and all of that it presents, right? So what this is akin to is when someone wants to hide something, they put it in the darkness, okay? And so you could imagine that the symbolism around, let's say, hiding things or ignorance is and has been darkness or the underground. And if you could reflect for a moment and ask yourself about the ancient temples and all the ancient things, the secrets, the knowledge, relics, where would you probably find a lot of that stuff these days? If it's not in a museum or something, it would probably still be underground. And so it seems to be very easy, just like when you would put somebody in a grave and you put dirt on them, to basically essentially put them 6 feet down there rather than a couple feet, so we can get them out every now and then. Because if you look at most cultures, they actually go and get the bones of their dead uncles and aunties and whatever, and then they clean them off, especially the leader, and then they put them back in, and that is generally a day of remembrance for them, because they know that this being is still alive, and this is just all a part of the process of connection. And they're very much in tune with what that world is saying, that spirit world, and that gives you a certain level of power, almost to be all powerful in many cases, because you could see things from both sides. You could have an eye in the spiritual world, and then you can have an eye in the physical world. Right now, we have a very strong eye in the physical world, and either the other eye is almost asleep or completely blind. And this other eye is the eye that peers into the spiritual world. So now when we look at the last 400 years, and I'll just take it from that level because there's a lot of fictitious history, but from the last 400 years, all of our ancestors have experienced all of their knowledge and their wisdom and what they've learned with their DNA. They've experienced that being buried. Okay. In fact, most of the stuff is still buried, even physically, mentally, and spiritually. And then also what is done after it's buried is something is put on top of it that generally strikes fear in everyone. And this is why you have churches basically on the top of sacred burial grounds, because churches actually function as symbols of fear. I mean, as a child, I was like, oh, no. I don't want to go in there. It's so boring. I have fear of boredom, okay? And not in sister love and the pinching and all that shit. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go there, right? So, but even deeper than that, there is always generally something that is even looks like a demon or something put on top of it in a story, like, oh, this is the haunted house of blah, 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 right? Or if there's ghosts moving around, don't go over there, you'll be cursed, blah, 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 okay? And so now that the wool has been pulled off of our eyes and the veil has been lifted and the ancestors have invited us in to once again join the celebration, lots of stuff, but in very clear, concise power packs have been coming through. Just like when I got off the line yesterday, la-di-da, I go sit down and I start eating my oatmeal, and life is there, and we're just eating this oatmeal. And then all of a sudden this voice comes in and said, Seven, what does hollow mean? And I'm like, you mean like HALLOW? And then they said, yeah, that one. And I said, the interesting thing is, because I do know the scripture, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." That's our biggest reference for us Westerners. I can't actually say I know what specifically hallowed means, so I'm going to go and look it up. Now, I did source a little bit about this in the chat for those who've heard this already, but it's important that it does get on the recording and run into the synchronicity, because it revealed a lot more things. And that's just one of this word "hallow" means set apart. It means actually holy. It means to set apart something for the holy, to pay attention or to observe. Okay, if it could be a term, the holy fire. What is the action that still allows something to be sacred? And when that action is no longer observed, it would be as if the sun or young ram or the soul in you no longer was able to shine into those depths and bring light to it, or bring light to this ancient wisdom and these treasures, and thus they became buried. So we see an act in the reality that is 100% verified of this technique of not only shrouding the ancient mysteries and putting them under the ground and hiding them, and then smacking some kind of fearsome, crazy-looking totem on top of them. That generally is a symbolic code also for something for those who still need to expunge this knowledge and information. But for others who don't know anything about it, it looks like a demon or a devil, and that's the end of it. And thus, our lineage is then thrown in the trash can because we can't remember our mothers and our fathers. Literally, not only can we not remember, I mean, we actually literally don't really observe them, our great-grandmothers and great-fathers, but we also can't remember in every tense who they really are. Like we say, well, where were my people? Where was my great-great-grandmother and all of this? And then it's like there's no knowledge of that. But what they're, you can have a seat, brother. And you can also have a seat here if you wish. Our brother Life just walked in. So what I'm showing here is that with our ancestors, when, let's say, any conquistador, any conqueror comes into a country, the first thing they're going to dispose of is your language and your mainly, actually, first, before they get your language, because that's going to take some time. They still need you to talk and communicate. You can't teach a person a language overnight. First thing they're going to do is destroy your mother, your ancient father. They're going to take your lineage, your history, your DNA, and they're going to bury that. Some way, somehow. If they do that psychologically, they will beat you into some kind of submission and have 2 generations completely forgetting who you really were, how much power, the lineage, the nobility, etc. They will bury it. So it's only the sun that will bring light to those things. It's only the sun that can penetrate, just like they even say I was in a cave. A cave is like a super level, another level of darkness. If you think you've seen darkness, you go into a cave and the darkness looks like it's actually coming into your eyes. Okay, that's the darkness. But when we were shining our flashlights, we saw this little green plant down there, just a little green sprout growing in like a little water stream down there. What? How's this plant growing? And the guy answered it synonymously when I remembered it from science class, and that was that the sun has such a deep penetration that it will penetrate into a far infrared, and it will keep going and penetrating deeper into the earth, giving still light, although a version that is different than the one we're looking at, light to all those things down there. So now, if we can not just hypothesize, but realize these prophecies saying that we're going into another sun, what they call the sixth sun, this means that the composition of the sun has changed and is continuously changing, more than likely to keep penetrating deeper into the depths of what has been forgotten, to bring light to it. And then there are going to be some who choose to, they're going to be able to actually expunge that light from within themselves and the depths of themselves, and they're going to come forth. And it's going to seem like light is coming from their mouth, their nose, their ears, their eyes, their wisdom, because their mouth, ears, eyes, everything else. And it's going to seem like they're just spraying out light or life over the lands. Okay, and this is all going to happen and is happening right now. Because once again, when we look into the deep knowledge, we have a simple mystery that has been cracked here. So when I had asked that question, what is hallowed, and we got that definition, it meant set apart and holy, obviously the mind immediately took me to Halloween, okay? And then once I thought of even Halloween, I said, this is going to be funny because we're going to learn a deep secret here because we have the exact template of what they always do right here. Something that is shrouded in darkness, something that seems to have something to do with souls and all of this. So let's see what this really, really is. So we know that Halloween is called the Day of the Dead. And just meaning that Halloween is connected to the Day of the Dead, because if you actually Google the Day of the Dead and you go to Wikipedia, you'll find the Day of the Dead starts on October 31st and it ends on November 2nd. Okay, so it's virtually 3 days in this tense. So before I even delve into that, I have to let you also understand, because we talked about Saturn, and Saturn is a deep representative of darkness because he's an enforcer of karma. So he could actually put you in the darkness, put you behind bars, put you underground. Okay, so when the enforcer comes, this is the things that can actually happen. And so if we look deep into that knowledge, what we'll find is we'll find that